I'm being a little bit naughty here because I'm paraphrasing, but this is Nick Newman. And where's he come from? Well, he's come from that Reuters Institute. And if you go to their website, you can see that they've teamed up with good old Oxford University. It's always in there somewhere. And this is the executive summary of that report. He went on to say this may be a temporary effect, but in almost all countries, we see audiences placing a greater premium on accurate and reliable news sources. Now, this is true because more people are going to social media in order to find out what the truth is. They're abandoning newspapers, they're abandoning the BBC, and they're going to accurate, reliable sources like the UK column. So we're going to say well done to Nick Newman. What can we tell you about him? Well, when we see what Reuters says, it says Nick Newman is a journalist and digital strategist who played a key role in shaping the BBC's internet services over more than a decade. He was a founding member of BBC's new website, leading international coverage as world editor 1997 to 2001. So what we've actually got here, and if you go and have a look at his LinkedIn, is we've got a complete BBC man. He is a BBC man. He's now writing in the BBC, but the BBC doesn't bother to tell you it's one of their own. So I think we're just going to label this BBC article as more fake news from Tim Davie, who of course we've now labelled as the BBC's king of hearts and minds. Outrageous stuff from the BBC, but clearly they're panicking because they're losing viewers.
Yes. Okay, let's come back onto the issue of inflation. And the Financial Times has a fantastic opinion piece. It's entitled, "Is China an Inflationary Force Now?" We've got to attack China because that's the only thing to do when the world is collapsing around your ears. You've got to find an external enemy to keep everybody focused on. The standard explanation says this op-ed for why inflation has been so low for so long in so many places is 3 words long: technology and globalization. The technology side has a lot to do with Moore's law. Over time, more of the goods and services we buy are digital, and computing power gets cheaper all the time. The globalization side has a lot to do with China. Its export machine gives us all cheap stuff and suppresses wages for manufacturing industries worldwide. This is just staggering hypocrisy. Because, of course, the reason that China is the economic powerhouse that it is these days is because Western companies, Western financial industry, encouraged Western companies to outsource their manufacturing to China, where they could take advantage of the cheap labor that was available there and the suppression of wages that was available there. So amazing. But let's just remind ourselves exactly where the inflationary force is coming from and what China's position in the table is, because as we pointed out on Monday, this is the central bank balance sheet expansion from 2007 to the present day. And we find the Federal Reserve Board at the very top of the list with 793% increase in their balance sheets since 2007. Bank of England comes second with 792%. Bank of Japan third on this particular table with 541%. European Central Bank with 408%, and the People's Central Bank of China, well, they come as poor fifth in that particular list with only 125% increase in their balance sheet. So is China really the major inflationary driver? I'm not entirely clear that it is. But look, there's a couple of errors on this table that I just wanted to highlight. The first one is a typographical one. Because where it says Federal Reserve Board at the top there, it says $1 billion. Well, in fact, that should be $1 million. So it's 7. Okay, so that hopefully clarifies that one. But the main problem is that the June 21 figure is already out of date since this was published on Monday, because it's no longer 7.9 million dollars. It's now $8.064 million. So it's already gone up in 2 days or 3 days, whatever it was. It's incredible. So what else are we facing at the moment, which is sort of creating an inflationary pressure? Well, of course, the lack of supply is a problem. So we've got article after article talking about this. This is from Supply Chain Quarterly. COVID-related challenges to plague supply chains in 2021. So they're talking about the various problems with supply of various commodities. Here's food manufacturer, export rules and container crisis threaten supply chain. Now, many people aren't aware that there's a container crisis, but what they're saying here is concerns over the future of UK and EU trade come as a continued shortage of shipping containers created more supply chain headaches. So this has got nothing to do with Brexit, despite the fact that often these supply chain issues are being put in Brexit language. It has got nothing to do with this. They go on to say the scarcity of containers has pushed up shipping prices to near record highs. According to Walker Logistics, by the end of 2020, the cost of shipping goods from China to Northern Europe, one of the most popular trade routes, had quadrupled from levels at the start of the year. Charlie Walker, head of marketing, warned that the problem increased pressure on British retailers and manufacturers when businesses already had to contend with the impact of Brexit and the pandemic on profits. He advised any businesses that imported products to order their next consignment much earlier. And so there aren't enough shipping containers. What else is going on? Soaring soy demand and the future corporate supply chain pledges, says Green Biz. And just to reinforce what David was saying on Monday, another engineering company here. I listened to you today talking about inflation. I have a small engineering company, and lately, to let you know that when I quote a job, I get prices for steel, and I'm told that they can only hold the price for what I need for 3 days. Plastics are also rapidly rising. So it is just quite a staggering situation. We've got the financial expansion creating inflationary pressures. We've also got supply side problems, supply chain problems, which are going to increase demand, which also puts the price up significantly as well.
Yeah, we've also had comment from people in construction in the local Plymouth area telling us there's problems with plasterboard, there's problems with timber, there's problems with all sorts of construction materials. So this is a picture of what's coming, Mike, engineered breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely. But we don't need to worry because the global wealth report is out from Credit Suisse. And that is fantastic news because apparently there are more millionaires than ever as a result of house price inflation, for example. And this is the key point of what they are saying in this report. Global wealth is projected to rise by 39% over the next 5 years, reaching $583 trillion by 2025. Low and middle income countries are responsible for 42% of the growth, although they account for just 33% of current wealth. Wealth per adult is projected to increase by 31%, passing the watershed mark of $100,000. The number of millionaires will also grow markedly over the next 5 years, reaching 84 million, while the number of UNHWIs should reach 344,000. I'm sorry, I'm not quite aware of what that is, but nonetheless, their chief investment officer said, there's no denying that actions taken by governments and central banks to organize massive income transfer programs to support individuals and businesses during the pandemic and led by lowering interest rates have successfully averted full-scale global crisis. These people are either on, I don't know, they're on some kind of psychotropic drugs or something because this is ridiculous. She said the lowering of interest rates by central banks has probably had the greatest impact. It is a major reason why share prices and house prices have flourished, and these translate directly into our valuations of household wealth. What we are seeing is not flourishing of economies. The production of the productivities of economies has collapsed. What we're seeing is inflation, and it is only going to get worse in the coming weeks, months.
Yeah. Well, the Guardian's on the case, luckily, Mike.
Oh, good.
Not. I picked this one up because the Guardian getting very, very excited that the Met Police had made a second arrest after BBC's Nick Watt was confronted on the street. And if you go into the article and you read even what the Guardian reports about this, that poor Nicky Watt, he had some people shouting at him, and they clustered around him a bit too close and they shouted at him, and he ran away through the police lines back in through the gate, security gate, into Downing Street. This man, as a BBC journalist, a senior BBC journalist, is so weak and precious that if you shout at him in the street, you're going to be lifted by the police. Well, I thought we'd focus a bit on the editor-in-chief, Catherine Viner. She says that the Guardian Media Group is a global news organisation that delivers fearless investigative journalism,
Really?
giving a voice to the powerless and holding power to account. When have you ever seen the Guardian actually do that, Mike?
Never.
I've never seen it happen, but Catherine seems to think this is true. She went on, she says, our independent ownership structure means we're entirely free from political and commercial influence. Only our values determine the stories we choose to cover. So if there's 500,000+ people protesting in London, the Guardian values mean that they're not going to cover that story because those people are not part of the Guardian values. But it says cover relentlessly and courageously. Do you get the feel for this lady?
Yeah.
I think we're going to say fantasy, really. She ended by saying, since 1821, the mission of the Guardian has been to use clarity and imagination to build hope. Where does that actually take you? You're in a country which is being taken to pieces, it's being destroyed, people harmed by vaccine, but you're running a newspaper so that you can increase hope.
Yes.
We'll just end because we don't know what else to say.
Well, let's move on then to online safety, because clearly we've got to be safe online. And Index on Censorship were running an event, a live streamed event this morning, Legal to Say, Legal to Type, a panel discussion. And David Davis MP was taking part on that. So he is going to lead a campaign against the new online safety bill. Apparently, he's branding it a censor's charter. He compared the online safety bill during this live stream to 1984, George Orwell's novel, of course. He accused ministers of outsourcing the policing of the internet to the big tech companies. And he said, well, let's have a look at what he said. He said the online safety bill is a censor's charter. Lobby groups will be able to push social networks to take down content they view as not politically correct, even though the content is legal. The idea we should force Silicon Valley companies to police Britain's speech online seems out of Orwell's 1984, and it's not what our voters expect of us. He's backing a report which Index on Censorship, are going to release today, I believe. So they are saying, that the duty of care model that the online safety bill proposes, based on health and safety legislation, is overly simplistic. He said they are going to say that it's going to force tech companies to delete posts that are considered harmful, with fines of up to 10% turnover. Plus, of course, if you don't cooperate, if you're a big tech company, you don't cooperate with Ofcom, you are potentially, as an individual manager, on the receiving end of a criminal charge. They're saying that the government's failure to define what constitutes harmful, so there's no definition of what harmful actually means. It effectively means that the scope is so broad that perfectly legal posts are going to be banned. This is absolutely correct. So I just want to also highlight this article from Edward Snowden on his blog, Continuing Ed, The Most Dangerous Censorship, because of course the online safety bill is a critical bill, and everybody that's watching this program should be getting to understand what it represents and really doing something about it if they want to be able to continue to speak out on social media in the not too distant future. But Snowden's making another point here. He's talking about the self-censorship that's going on at the moment, which undoubtedly it is. I just want to highlight his closing paragraph here. It's worth reading the whole thing. So he's saying that unlike contemporary North Korea or Saudi Arabia, the coercive apparatus doesn't have to be the secret police knocking at the door. Fear of losing a job, or of losing an admission to school, or of losing the right to live in the country of your birth, or merely of social ostracism. Many of today's best minds in so-called free democratic societies have stopped trying to say what they think and feel and have fallen silent. That, or they adopt the party line of whatever party they would like to be invited to, whatever party their livelihoods depend on. And this is, I think, Brian, a really critical point, because we're seeing huge amounts of self-censorship at the moment. We have seen some very brave people, Mike Yeadon, the likes of that coming out, for example, and saying, explaining why they do not agree with current COVID policy. There are equivalents